420s.
You might write that.
The January 3rd, 2024 Auburn City Council workshop will be called to order. First item of business is an executive session pursuant to Title I MRSA Section 4056C for discussion of an economic development matter. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counsel Geary and seconded by Counsel Walker. All those in favor? 5 having voted in affirmative, the council will be in executive session. freed up.
It's that big one next to the water.
No, it's off, isn't it, James? That's where the smoke was coming from. We're back in workshop, and the next item will be an update on the opera funding by Rita Beaudry, our grant manager.
I'll just start real quick just to tee this up as just so the council knows that Rita's been involved in quite a few webinars with the feds regarding our ARPA funds. Just like anything, the rules change almost weekly, so she continues monitoring that as this gets to this finish line. Some of the rules have changed, some of that regarding a new deadline regarding July 31st for ensuring that we have estimates for funding that is allocated, and also that all funds will be allocated by that July 31st date. Again, originally thinking that we had till December of 2024. That's now up to July 31st, so that's our new target date. But you saw some of that information in your packet, but Rita, go ahead, I'll let you break through.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, as the city manager said, there have been a lot of webinars, and even this afternoon I received another email saying we need to take a look at all the rules and regs. The interim final rule for these funds has not changed. However, there are certainly new deadlines. What we'll need to do is by July 1st, your meeting, at that time, you'll have to tell me what your plans are for expending the unallocated funds so that I can enter those into my report that's due by July 31st. And since there are 50 projects so far with those funds, I need to be able to report out on each and every one of those projects.
So you have 12 projects that we provided in your information that we're looking at and saying that these should be closed. There's no current initiative moving forward regarding those, or there have been no applications that have been received for some of the programming that we've allocated some of those funds for. I think the first one regarding Lake Grove, we've done a great deal up at Lake Grove. That was a strong initiative. Right now, we're not seeing where, timing-wise, what else could we get completed there. You did allocate funds within the CIP to take care of the parking lot, the basketball court, and so a lot of that is happening. And so there's more things taking place there, but these funds are sitting and saying, okay, I'm not sure if there's anything else that we can immediately do. The SmartGov, planning and permitting SmartGov software system, that's completed. It came in under what we had determined for budgeting, as well as the fire truck purchase came in under, as well as property tax relief that did not expend all those funds as we had designed the program. The accessory dwelling unit development, you had already reappropriated the property tax relief in the accessory dwelling unit, but this was more letting some of the final costs catch up with this. This is what was remaining afterwards. So we didn't have the exact number because some of those were still pending whether or not somebody's going to draw other funds down out of that. The downtown curb appeal just did not get the traction that originally was determined in the program, and so there just were no applications that came forth that qualified for that. Neighborhood corner store, several projects were funded under that. This is the remaining funds. No other applications have been received. Heating assistance, the council at the time certainly was concerned, and for appropriate reasons, that there may be some needs for some support for heating assistance that we were going to receive from the community. Unsure some of the economic drivers, what would caused that. There were no, through CDBG, through the general assistance, there were no other requests that had came in above and beyond what they already had allocated for budget for that. Engine 2 land purchase, we ended up using different funds. ARPA does require a lot more as it pertains to the environmental studies that were needed on that. So we weren't going to hit some of those requirements. Plus, that purchase came in a lot higher. So there was other funds that were used for that land purchase. The commercial agriculture incentive program, again, did not receive the traction that was originally developed. The Norway Savings Bank HVAC exhaust, that came in. This one here was actually the funding that was left over from a larger project within that. And then the third space initiative is the other one that I think Councilor Staples had brought forward. Again, didn't get the traction. We'd worked with a few individuals that were looking at that, and it just didn't get to where they could take off on that. There was some funding used on that, though. Rita.
There was one project that did move forward with that. Yep.
So it was great.
Any questions? Any questions, Council Milks?
Mr. Manager, the downtown curb appeal, am I correct? Because I did have a couple of constituents ask me that were landlord types, that was restricted to only owners of those buildings. Is that correct? Do we know?
I believe so.
Is that what? Okay. That's,
Yeah, Zach can certainly share that, but I think you're
because
correct.
that was the issue, was that people wanted to use it, but the restrictions around the program were such that a lot of people were restricted from using it, correct?
It was restricted by geography within the downtown district, as well as it had to be an owner-occupied multi-unit.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council?
I guess I do have
Council
one
Platt.
question. What are the restrictions for these funds? Like, where do we have it posted what the restrictions are for the use of ARPA funds, so we know what to suggest? Is that just federal
So
website?
the final rule has 480-something pages to it. And there have been subsequent iterations of those rules that came out, like there's 150 pages here or 200 pages there. So if there's something specific that you would like me to research, I am happy to do that and let you know.
Yeah, I think the better
Come on,
approach
Rita.
is, here's the idea, does this qualify? Council Milks?
I was joking with Rita.
So no requests tonight for, we're not asking for, where do you want to allocate this $589,000? Know that our deadline is that July 31st. We'll be bringing this back before you, but we needed tonight, just to let you know that this is what we've identified as additional funds. We'll have some conversations. If you have questions like Councilor Platts just asked, reach out to us. If you have an idea, reach out to us, and we can move forward with those.
Anything else from the council? Council Collins?
Yeah, just to clarify, when the funds to be obligated, is that, formalized plans, pretty solid contracts, or just here's
Yes,
what
solid contracts.
Okay. So you need ideas as quickly as possible.
Anything else from the council on this item? Okay, thank you very much. The next item will be the Riverwalk Rail Trail Project overview by Mr. Labonte and Mr. Cousins.
I can run the slideshow if you want.
They may move rapidly, so.
Gonna run down that trail?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Eric Cousins with the Planning and Permitting Department, and Jonathan has been engaged in this project, trying to bring some of these trail expansions for a lot of years in different roles as mayor and executive director of the Land Trust. And nobody knows this better than him, so we'll get an overview from him tonight.
Knowing your time, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll be efficient in some of the context in history, and certainly if there's other follow-up folks have, they can go through Phil, and I can provide some more background, because this has been an effort that's more than a quarter of a century in the making. There's been a lot of past effort. Before we kind of zero in on this specific congressionally directed spending project, just to put this segment in context, there are broader regional, state, and national efforts to build active transportation corridors, places for people to bike, use their walker, wheelchair, walk, take their dogs for a walk. One of those sections is the East Coast Greenway, which is a Key West to Calais bike route. That route has been realigned through some efforts, including through the Casco Bay Trail Alliance, which some of you have may heard about, which is envisioning a sort of a biking and walking triangle between Portland, Auburn, Lewiston, and Brunswick. So what was historically with the East Coast Greenway, a route that went from Portland to Brunswick, and then north through Lisbon, Lewiston, off to Gardner, so it never came through Auburn. The new vision has that trail come from Portland into Auburn to Lewiston, back to Brunswick, before going on upstream, if you will, from there. Some highlights of some past efforts that start to zero in on this specific project. In 1998 and 2012, the two cities, Auburn and Lewiston, with AvCog, the Androscoggin Land Trust, and the National Park Service did a lot of community engagement around trail planning. A lot of effort focused on revitalization along not only the Androscoggin River, but also the Little Androscoggin River, which doesn't get nearly the attention, but if you were in any other part of the country and had a river of that size, it would be where all of your focus is. So growing awareness about the opportunity to use the Little Androscoggin River for connections along its shores and across. The last big effort in 2012, we mentioned the East Coast Greenway and Casco Bay Trail, but starting in 98 and then through 2012 was a broader Androscoggin Greenway vision, which was looking at building a connected bike and pedestrian hiking route from Merrimeeting Bay upstream. And I know the council's been involved. I believe there was a tax increment finance district for the self-storage facility that included support for financing West Pitch Park's expansion to the other side of the tracks. Once you cross into the town of Turner, there's a 2,800 acre state park there, and there's a vision to eventually connect downtown Auburn up to the state park as well. I won't go through all of these. We'll give a couple of highlights in terms of some of the local initiatives that are part of moving this East Coast Greenway Casco Bay Trail piece that includes this project we now have funding for. So kind of starting from the area of Danville coming north, a lot of times these regional trails look at using old rail beds, corridors that are no longer active or have been abandoned. That might help get us to Danville or Danville Junction, but it doesn't get us from Danville Junction into downtown. As the council is likely aware, there is a study that's just launched looking at the future of the Washington Street corridor, laid out in the last comprehensive plan to make Washington Street northbound two-directional local street to support redevelopment and growing the tax base there. The alternative would be the southbound side becomes a two-way sort of turnpike spur controlled access. As part of that planning, we are looking explicitly at introducing safe bike ped access along the entire corridor. So that would, in essence, connect from the exit 75 area north to the area we're going to show at the end of this new trail project. This is a sort of a quick snapshot. This is from a year 2000 study. The Riverwalk was about to be under construction around this area. It was not in place then. The city worked with a firm called Rizzo Associates and Maine DOT to lay out opportunities for in-town either rail with trail or rail to trail sections throughout the downtown area. In the New Auburn area, the slide on the left is an old land trust slide looking at some of the both publicly controlled open space and privately conserved open space in the New Auburn area. This was foundational to the 2009-2010 New Auburn Master Plan that was part of the 2010 Comp Plan that looked at opportunities to leverage connections to open space, the fact that the New Auburn neighborhood had frontage on both rivers, and how to connect those with safe bike ped facilities. Obviously, continuing into Lewiston, Lewiston is working through their riverfront island efforts. The vision is to be able to connect trails that get across the Jenkins Bridge and find their way to the former Pan Am, now CSX Lewiston Lower. It's about a 12-mile inactive section of rail that would get you to Lisbon Falls. And there's been active discussions between the Lewiston and Auburn Railroad and CSX about securing rights to that corridor for trail development. So there's a lot of pieces in play. The project will get into the specifics for now. Certainly start to build that momentum. And there's a quick look at the Lewiston Lower. There was a study that the LA Railroad commissioned back in 2017, kind of some pre-feasibility, high level, what's the state of the structures along that corridor, any scenic overlooks as part of getting prepared for a future trail project if we secured rights from then Pan Am, now CSX. So here specifically is the project that received the earmark funds, congressionally directed spending. It was $3.9 million. Federal funds, as they all do, require a 20% local match. There is a potential as we get into project development and scoping that to approach the LA Railroad Board to help contribute to the local share. The intent with the railroad is to be active with both cities. This is a corridor that was owned by LARC and donated to the cities about 6 years ago. We do plan to coordinate with Maine DOT, who may also have some supplemental funds to support that. And we will, and we can certainly through Phil, keep the council abreast with respect to what the public engagement will look like with respect to the design. That includes not only the neighborhoods on either side, recognizing some of the public safety challenges along the rail corridor and the abutting Frank family land, mindful of that in design, including things like how we run conduit in the city's fiber network for cameras as part of the city's system to monitor those areas. The Conservation Working Group, as part of the Sustainability and Natural Resources Board, has expressed ongoing interest in efforts along the Little Androscoggin River more broadly, so making sure as stakeholders they're connected. And the East Coast Greenway has offered to assist in broader communications and outreach to their members, supporters. They have a new New England regional manager who is a landscape architect by training and has offered some in-kind support to do some renderings of potential trail gateways for visual cues as we engage the public. So I'm going to kind of go quickly through segments of the area we're looking at for this Riverwalk expansion, and certainly can take feedback or questions. So it really picks up from Bonnie Park. If anyone's walked that section, you're on the old rail bed under Main Street, and then the trail moves off the rail bed as you enter Moulton Park. So the intent would be that the trail actually would continue. You'd still have a sort of an off-ramp into Moulton Park, but the trail would stay on that rail bed. What's lacking right now is if you're walking south on Main Street, if you want to access this trail, you would have to cross Main Street, walk down a ramp and into the playground area at Bonnie Park, and then turn around. Or if you were at the CLT or old EL Great Falls School, you'd have to walk over back to High Street, then to Hutchins Street. So mindful of kind of where that triangle is creating some sort of ADA access for folks who might be on Main Street or in that park to get down into the trail will be a key element. Following along the trail, so this cutout is from the 2000 Rizzo study. So in that case, it was rail with trail or simply looking at being fully separated. That wouldn't be the case with this because the city now controls that corridor and can use it. There would be connection to Hutchins Street, but using the existing trail in Moulton Park, so you wouldn't have to build anything additional there. And then there would be a connection, and that 2000 study, a key element was there was engineering evaluations done on the ground about where a bridge could be sited to be able to create a connection back to the Barker Mill Trail. So this is envisioning somewhere just upstream or south of the lower Barker Dam, making a connection back into New Auburn to the Barker Mill. Again, there's a snapshot on the left of where that trail location, that bridge location could be. This shows an engineering schematic of being able to, with grades and having clearance out of the floodplain, make that connection from just off the rail bed to a location along the Barker Mill Trail. While the Barker Mill Trail is expected heading south to stay a gravel path, and I know there's been some past discussion about some repairs from storm damage there, the shared use path, the paved model, would you'd cross into the Barker Mill Trail. From there back to Mill Street would function like a shared use path. It would be paved, so folks can make that loop. If you go into the Rizzo study, and again, that's available online, but we could circulate a link. We weren't using the rail bed at that time, so there were a significant number of very large bridges, as you can see those three green lines, that would have carried the trail from somewhere along the old Barker Mill Trail, either across both rail beds or across both rail beds and across Washington Street. So very large structures. None of that's being proposed because we'll already be on that side using the Lark corridor, and the Lark corridor actually goes underneath CSX. So the CSX active freight line is carried over, so we don't have to worry about crossing any kind of at-grade crossing of an active freight line, which is essential. And the trail would end somewhere along Washington Street, likely now where there's a gravel parking area in between the rail bed and Taylor Brook. Taylor Brook meets the Little Androscoggin proximate to that. Eric, obviously, as you guys know, has been active with the FERC relicensing, not only on Lewis and Falls, but the upper and lower Barker. There's recognized need for hand carry boat access upstream of the upper Barker. It's stocked, so there's fishing interest there. So there's a real opportunity for a trailhead off Washington Street to support multiple uses there. And of course, that Washington Street corridor study I mentioned really is in a good place to queue up how do we get across Washington Street. If Washington Street, if elements of it really need to be to support local development, the Brickyard Commons project is required to build sidewalks on Brickyard Circle as part of their project. And there are currently sidewalks on Washington Street to about coastal T-shirts. It's about 1,400 feet from here, which is not insurmountable. So the opportunity for those neighborhoods to be able to get to the Riverwalk and access downtown without having to cross through the Rotary and some of the more unpleasant locations is a real possibility. The last element that has not had nearly as much evaluation, but was included in the request, and we are looking at scoping some what I would call some pre-feasibility studies, some of the high-level environmental triggers, is the ability to connect Newbury Street or pedestrian access on Newbury Street, kind of past the community garden lot into Anniversary Park. What I've shown in that sort of quick cutout is the floodplain mappings. The green is the 500-year, the yellowish orange is the 100-year flood. So while there have been limited connections shown in any of the planning studies, there really hasn't been an engineering evaluation to look at any fatal flaws with putting a bridge there. So we'd want to evaluate factors like, what would the structural requirements be to put a bridge in the floodplain if we could, or if it had to be out of the floodplain, what would the impacts be? Would there need to be structures in the river channel or not? And how does that impact? This is designated as salmon habitat now. There are other recreation plans in river. So would there be opportunities in river, or would you need things like right-of-way or otherwise to meet bridge standards? So while the other elements or the crossing to the Barker Mill Trail may be more shovel-ready, if you will, we want to start through the process, and the goal is to be able to scope some pre-feasibility work into this study to better understand it. So I'll stop there.
Questions from the council? Council Platt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that presentation. Yeah, easy question. I was curious, what budget cycle will the $780,000 obligation hit?
Depending on where this is hitting, but I think you won't see that till probably FY '27.
Other questions?
Yeah, just one follow-up on that we're kind of mindful of. I mentioned the LARC connection to assist with some of that. There is a state bond, Trails bond, $30 million bond that will be coming through. We are monitoring that to see what the expectations are. If this project is coming along and we've zeroed in on needs, that's a state only, so that could count towards match. And depending on other elements that may drive some of those costs, though that could be a possibility as well. Any place we can bring in non-local dollars is the intent.
Any other discussion from the council? No. Thank you very much. We'll adjourn the work session and reconvene at 7 p.m. in the council chamber.
think you're on, Mayor.
Good. Yeah, I did. The June 3rd, 2024 Auburn City Council meeting will be called to order. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If we could have the councilors introduce themselves, we'll start with Councilor Platt.
Adam Platts, at-large City Council.
Leroy Walker, Councilor at Ward 5.
Jeff Harmon, Mayor, and I would note that Councilor Weisner will not be with us tonight.
Steve Milks, City Council, Ward 3.
Tim Cowan, City Council, Ward 2.
Rick Whiting, City Councilor, Ward 1.
Belinda Gary, Auburn City Councilor at Large.
Anaya Eggy, Student Representative.
Phil Kroll, City Manager.
Thank you. The first item tonight will be the consent agenda. There are 4 items on the consent agenda, all reappointments to the Age-Friendly Community Committee. They include Donna Wallace, Lawrence Pelletier, Dana Morrill, and Cynthia Larrabee. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Councilor Milks. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Walker. The vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 6 having voted in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion is adopted. The next item is the approval of minutes from the May 20th, 2024 regular City Council meeting. Are there any errors or corrections? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
It's been moved by Councilor Walker. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Cowan. Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 6 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion is adopted. There are no communications, presentations, or recognition this evening. The next item will be the first open session of the evening. Any members of the public that would like to address the council about items that are not on tonight's agenda, please approach the podium and provide your name and address.
You said name and address?
Yes, please.
My name is Malcolm Arthur Henry, 86 Poliquin Ave. Do I just go? Okay. Yeah, I don't really want to be here to talk about this, but it just feels like something is just like messed up, and it's not really my business to bring it to anyone's attention, but I can't really fully like mentally carry on without like just bringing this to someone's attention. There was a man charged with sexual abuse of a minor, named Norman Pelletier, who is my next door neighbor. I want to give a little background real quick. I'm a new Auburnite. I don't know if Auburnite is even the right word. I moved in recently with my landlord slash good friend Carrie. And I've been really enjoying Auburn. I like it a lot. I don't really want to leave. And then one day, Carrie told me that through a quick conversation with our neighbor and a even quicker Google search, he was able to understand who his neighbor's father was and who was staying in the home. Yeah, there's a young family right across the street from us. on our other side, there's a family. I think there's a family with kids right next to them as well. And those aren't the only families with kids on that street, I don't think, or on that avenue. You know, there's families all over, right packed into that area. I don't know if it was like some sort of like flop, but it doesn't seem like, I don't know, because you all seem very professional and like, you know, I'm hopefully getting the aura that you care about like the citizens of this community of all ages, obviously. This does feel like someone messed up somewhere, and I don't really know what to do about it, but it seems like maybe one of you might have an idea. Just from the anxiety, I might end up leaving, but I couldn't do that without just presenting this to you guys. I don't really know what else to say. I'll go sit down if you guys have heard everything.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Henry. The city manager will get your contact information so that he can follow up with staff on your concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Please go ahead, sir.
Charles Arthur Soul, originally at 448 Court Street. I went to Ed Little, graduated from Ed Little, and right now I reside at 135 Bartlett Street. I had Mr. Perkins was my public speaking teacher at Ed Little, and he always said to me, if you're gonna get in front of a crowd and speak, say the most important thing first. So therefore, on 11th of June, I want Lewiston voters to vote down at the Multipurpose Center the school budget of $10 million. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You realize this is the Auburn City Council, and Auburn residents won't be voting on the Lewiston
Let me give you a
school
little history.
budget.
Back in Greece, when democracy was being created, they had city-states. And if a citizen was maligned or anything, he would go home to his city-state, and they would give him the floor to speak. So I'm taking a little lesson out of history, which I like history. And therefore, with all I was the class president, student senate, Boys State, Daughters of the American Revolution, good citizen. And then I went to, I volunteered for the Vietnam era. And I'm very happy with my life, thanks to the City of Auburn. So I come back down to neutral ground to mention that 11th of June, multi-purpose, vote down no on the school budget of $10 million.
Thank you. Is there any other members of the public that would like to address the council at this time? If not, we'll close the first open session. The next item is unfinished business. There is no unfinished business before the council this evening. Under new business, the first item is Order 8206032024, authorizing the city's general obligation bonds in the amount of $16,615,750 to finance the city's FY25 capital improvement program. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Melks and seconded by Councilor Whiting. Are there any comments from the public? If so, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Seeing none, discussion by the council. Councilor Platt?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose an amendment pursuant to the third line item, record restoration. It was my recollection from a previous discussion we had that we intended to decrease that line item to $50,000 in the CIP, and I believe move $50,000 of that into the operating budget in the next fiscal cycle. So I would like to propose an amendment to make that change, striking $100,000 and turning it to $50,000 to fall in line with our conversations from several weeks ago.
So Council Platts has moved to amend the CIP at the record restoration project from 100,000 down to 50,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Council Walker. Discussion by the council. Council Whiting.
I think I'd be inclined to vote for that as long as we look at a full cost of records restoration in the next budget cycle.
Council Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not in support of it because this is the first line that gets cut when we have a budget shortfall. And through the years that I've been off and on the council, our city clerk's office is starting to catch up, but they fell behind for so long. And these vital records can only hold on for just so long before they get even worse in disintegrated shape, some of these books. And they may or may not be able to be restored, or it will be cost more to get these vital documents saved.
Other discussion by the council? I would just make the point to follow up on what Councilor Platts pointed out. At our workshop, the council recommended this as a $50,000 item, and it appears to me this is an inadvertent error in the schedule that's Schedule 1 that's before us tonight. Any further comments by the council? Council Whiting?
Just to say that I agree with Councilor Gary's remarks, but I also am hopeful that if the city clerk and the city manager can work to come up with a total figure that it will take to restore all the records, that we'll have that information in the next fiscal year, and maybe we'll bite the bullet and actually spend the money to get to a place where we don't have to worry about it every year.
Yeah, and my recollection of the workshop was exactly that, to ask the manager in next year's budget presentation to have an overall plan and to look at including this in the operational budget. Any further comments?
And that was my intent with the amendment, is to imply that this is probably an ongoing thing. It's not necessarily a fiscal cliff with this, so to weave it into the operating budget would probably make sense after we can get an analysis of the full cost.
Just to reaffirm it, that was my recollection of that conversation too, is that there's a set amount of dollars every year that has to be allocated for this effort. So it does make sense to put it into our regular operational budget. So I too would be in support of moving that to 50,000.
Anything further on this amendment? The vote will be by show of hands to amend the CIP schedule to reduce the record restoration from 100,000 to 50,000. All in favor? Opposed? 5 having voted in the affirmative and 1 in the negative, the amendment passes. We'll return to the main motion, which is the adoption of the CIP. Is there further discussion by the council? Council Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not be supporting this. I don't think we can take on $16 million more debt with us paying off the high school and with us, the voters, passing for the new public safety building. That's going to be putting an awful lot more on our plate and tie the hands of our constituents in the long run.
Further comments by the council?
Could I ask what
Councilor
you would
Walker.
support?
I would probably do 10.
Further comments, discussion by the council? Seeing none, the vote will be by roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Gary?
No.
Councilor Whiting?
Yes.
Councilor Cowan?
Yes.
Councilor Milks?
Yes.
Councilor Walker?
Yes.
Councilor Platts?
Yes.
5 having voted in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, the motion is adopted at first reading. The next order of business is Order 830603, 2024, authorizing the city manager to execute the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Auburn and the IAMAW AFL-CIO union for custodians and maintenance workers, covering the period of 7/1/2024 to 6/30/2027. Is there a motion?
Motion to move.
Seconded.
Moved by Councilor Walker, seconded by Councilor Platts. Is there any comment from members of the public? If so, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Seeing none, discussion by the council. The vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 6 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next item is Order 840603, 2024, initiating a zoning map amendment to the area of 555 Minot Avenue from T4.2B to general business. For clarification for the public, this is the lot that the current central fire station sits on and the adjoining lot to fire station, changing that to general business to facilitate the construction of the new public safety facility. Are there any comments from members of the public? If so, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Excuse me, thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to move.
Moved by Councilor Milts. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Walker. Any comments by member of the public? Please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Seeing none, discussion by the council. The vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 6 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion is adopted. The next order of business is Order 850603, 2024, initiating a zoning map amendment in the Grace Lawn Road pit area from general business to multifamily suburban. For clarification to the public, this is the area of the gravel pit on the south side of the lake, and the proposal is to change a portion, approximately 3/4 of the affected area, from general business to multifamily suburban. Is there a motion?
Move that.
Moved by Councilor Whiting. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Walker. Are there comments from member of the public? If there is, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Seeing none, is there discussion by the council? Council Platts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I have a question. I'd just like to confirm that we have not heard anything from the current owner of that site to change their trajectory from what we were made aware of several months ago, that they would not be moving forward with the development.
Mr. Manager.
Yeah. So we have not had any further conversation. The map that's before you was the initial map provided by the property owner, and it was submitted to staff, and that's what's being brought forward based on the previous discussions over the last 2 years.
Other discussion by the council? Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am not anti-development. I would support some housing and homes put on the property, but not as many as been put in the paper. And I don't support this map being as broad and as close to the lake as possible. If this was more in town and we didn't have to worry about our drinking water, then it wouldn't be so much of an issue in my mind or how I am voting. But because it is so close to the water, we only get one shot at this, and that is why I will be voting no, even though this is only a recommendation to send it to the planning board, which will have a public hearing on this and flesh out more details.
Yeah, and just to clarify for the council and members of the public, the question before the council tonight is a referral to committee. It's not making any recommendation in any way. It's just sending the matter to the planning board for their review and recommendation. After they finish their business and provide whatever recommendation they have to the council will have a work session and 2 readings where there'll be ample opportunity for substantive discussions. Council Miller.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And as I understand, and this is in confirmation with the consultants that the developer wanted, and any concerns that constituents may have, it's going to allow a business area that is going to be surrounded by residential area, so that it's going to allow services that are necessary. Some concerns that I've heard is that that because of the distance away from places, that people would not be able to have some of the services that they need if it was all residential, or in this case, multifamily residential. And so this development still would be able to have the multifamily residential plus the business, the basic business needs that those folks would need in that development. So just I want to make sure everybody understood that that's what we're voting on.
Council Whiting.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that I believe this is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and so the planning board should be receptive. And it's, I think, more consistent with what was originally intended than fully having the 60-plus acres as general business, entirely general business.
Other discussion by the council? The vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 5 having voted in the affirmative and 1 in the negative, the motion is adopted. We'll now move on to our second open session of the evening. Members of the public that would like to address the council on any item that's not on tonight's agenda, please approach the podium and provide your name and address. Seeing none, we'll close the open session and move on to reports. I have a brief mayor's report. I represented the city at the Memorial Day Remembrance at Veterans Park, and Councilor Whiting, Councilor Weisner, and Councilor Walker also attended. It was a great event and quite well attended. This last weekend, I attended the dedication of the Pettingill softball fields in the memory of Trish Aslin and Joe Walker. I want to thank the city staff and the vendors that put together the memorials. They did an excellent job. It was a great event, and everyone well attended, and everyone had an opportunity to remember Joe and Tricia. And I would especially like to thank councilors from the prior council, Councilor Staples and Councilor Moran attended, who were involved in the initial action by the council to set up the memorials. And finally, I spoke yesterday at the Pride Month March, which started in Auburn and ended up at the Samard Payne Park in Lewiston. And with that, we'll start with council reports with Councilor Geary.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is sort of a report, but not. I was very privileged to attend Edward Little's graduation this Saturday night. I had the distinct privilege of sitting out on the football field in the middle of it, and I also had the privilege of seeing a very young, a fellow that's been staying with a friend of mine. His name is Lamar Voven. He worked very hard. Sorry, I thought I shut it off. He worked very hard to get enough credits to graduate, and it both made my friend John and I tear up to see him and all that he accomplished. And it was worth it to see this happen, even though the temperature dropped 30 degrees. I would live through it all again for this most rewarding moment, as well as the whole service that they provided. Just to see the huge class of people graduating. I think I was told 95% of the kids graduated this year. So kudos to the teachers that took the time and the patience to work with these students to bring them forward. And I thank you for letting me say these things.
Thank you. Council Whiting?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to tell Councilor Walker this quote I heard yesterday morning, but I thought it absolutely fit Joe Walker. It was a retired general who was talking about Memorial Day, and he said that he didn't fight because he hated the people in front of him. He fought because he loved the people behind him. And I thought that was Joe.
Councilor Cowan?
That's a great quote. I don't have any reports. I just, again, I was out of town, but with you all in spirit on Sunday. So look forward to going and seeing the memorials in the fields.
Councilor Mill?
Yeah, nothing for me.
Councilor Walker?
Thank you. I'll keep it real short. I just want to put a big thank you out to the City of Auburn and all the people that were involved on making such a great celebration for us at the Pettingill Park Fields. It was unbelievable, and the people that were there was unbelievable. They came to myself and also to the aunt of the which we call the baseball field, now softball, but we can't explain it all in words, so we're not even going to try. But it was such a heartwarming event, and I hope we never have to do it again. For the same reasons, I hope we name a lot more things in our city. But thank you, everybody that was involved and was part of it. Last thing, June 11th, Tuesday night, 6 o'clock, Age Friendly has its meeting at Pettingill Park at the Senior Center. Thank you.
Councilor Platt?
Just one quick update from the most recent school committee meeting. If you guys recall from the last city council meeting, you asked for some further clarification from me on a point of business, which was that the school committee had authorized to spend either $55,000 or $75,000 on Department of Energy applications to get some assistance with the physical structures. The mayor asked if that was part of the Harriman facilities plan, and I got some clarification from Superintendent Brown. That had been suggested by the superintendent several years ago, prior to the Harriman study. However, the Harriman facility study did such a deep amount of work that the amount that we had to cough up for those applications was significantly less than it would have been had we applied for them not doing the facility study. So just wanted to follow up on that.
Thank you. Representative Eggy?
I just wanted to agree with Representative Gary, Council Gary, that I was really proud of all my friends and just fellow students who graduated. And it was, I think that Dr. Brown said that they were one of the highest senior classes, like percentage-wise, that graduated in Maine this year. So that's really cool.
Okay, thank you.
Not to interrupt, sorry. I believe that during COVID, Edward Little's graduation rate was somewhere around 75%. Is that correct? Yeah. And so to be up around 95%, it's quite an achievement for the school department.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I just thought I'd give you an update regarding Balloon Festival and some of the work that's being done regarding that. Lewiston City staff is very committed to bringing this event to the community this year and future years. Our team is working the best that we can to support their efforts. It'll be very similar to the past years. There'll be regular balloons, specialty balloons, nonprofit food vendors, a stage with live local music, balloon goes, launches that will be twice a day, plus some new elements that they will bring in. The event dates are August 16, 17, and 18. The new name is Lewiston Auburn Balloon Festival. There will be, for Auburn elements, just so the balloon parade will start in Auburn and the Lewiston and the Samard Payne Park. We are looking, we're working with Lewiston to host a classic car show on Main Street that will take place right after the parade, along with a beer garden and festival plaza. And also whether or not we could incorporate a stage for that Saturday afternoon when those events are taking place. In the FY25 budget, there was $10,000 that was allocated to the Great Falls Balloon Festival. We will appropriate that $10,000 to the Lewiston Auburn Balloon Festival. We always in the past provided in-kind services for the Balloon Festival, including any additional law enforcement, overtime, rescue services. We'll continue doing that. That's above and beyond the $10,000. And then, but any cost that's associated with any of the events that's taking place with the beer garden or the car show, that will be part of the cost of the event itself. That won't be anything extra that Auburn will cover for costs. We'll certainly provide some more updates. I believe there's a meeting tomorrow. I spoke with the city administrator in Lewiston today as we continue to work out some of these details, but they have a full planning team that's underway, and I think it'll be a really solid event for the community. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Earl, the March 2024 finance report.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This one's going to be short and sweet. There's not too many highlights. We should be at approximately 75% of the annual budget as of this March report. As for revenues, we were at 87.44%, and for expenditures, we were at 67.81%. The reason for that lower expenditure amount is you'll see that jump a little bit in April. That's when our debt service and TIF credit enhancement agreement payments are due. So that percentage will go back up to that normal, typical approximate number that we should be at. But so it's not a worrying number for revenue. It's not worrying for expenditures. We're right where we should be at.
Questions on the finance report from the council? Council Platt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, one question on the 85% of revenue. Is that just, is that higher just because of cash flow timing, or do you expect more revenue?
Well, we do expect more revenue. There was more revenue budgeted for the year, so that's where that comparison of year over year can be a little tricky. So we might be changing that moving forward, but it is where we expected to be at this time of year based on what was budgeted.
Other questions by the council? Thank you. The next and final item is an executive session for the public. There's no action expected after the executive session.
Sorry, are we going to make a motion to accept?
Yep, excuse me, thank you. Is there a motion to accept the finance report?
Yes, move it.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Walker, seconded by Councilor Milks. Vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 6 having voted in the affirmative and none in the negative, the motion's adopted. The executive session will be pursuant to Title I, MRSA, Section 405-6A for a personnel matter. The vote will be by show of hands. All in favor? Opposed? 6 having voted in the affirmative, none in the negative, the council will be in executive session.